Thanks for joining us for round 9 of the 1999 Shell Championship Series. It is a wet Symmons Plains as we have a look at the grid for this full 30-car capacity grid. Paul Radisich, his very first Shell Championship Series pole position. An all-Kiwi front row with Greg Murphy. Jason Bright described it as the Channel 10 second row with Mark Scaife and Neil Crompton, and the JB third row with Jason Bright and Jason Barguana, and the two Cameron Max, McLean and McConville, the fourth row.
Outstanding performance from McLean. That Garth Tander, 9th. Russell Engel struggling in 10th position. Mark Larkham and John Bow on the two Fords. Glenn Seaton and Dick Johnson will start out of row 7. Stephen Richards and Tony Longhurst, the Queenslander, out of 8.
As the cars head off on their warm-up lap, Faulkner and Poole, we say happy birthday to Mark in the John Deere Commodore. Paul Romano, Larry Perkins a long way back. Forbes and David Skippy Parsons, Dougal McDougall and Steve Reed.
Paul Wheel and David Truckee Parsons, his teammate, 26. Anthony Tratt and Leighton Cranbrook just turned 18, the youngster from Darwin. Paul Dumbrell and Mike Emery will start off the back row. The
reason why we put the nicknames in there is to help differentiate, because obviously both David Parsons and them both running in a similar colour scheme of cars, but they're both challenge recruitment. Have a look at the Tasmanian crowd there. It is fantastic, and we congratulate them for turning out in such dismal weather in such strong numbers. Here's some of the in-car shots that we will give you today from Symmons Plains as Scaife takes it through the first gear. Very tight hairpin. It's going to be an interesting day, Barry.
Well, it is. The big difficulty, I guess, would be getting the temperature into the tyres. I tell you what is going to be a major corner is the first hairpin. It's a very, very tight hairpin at the best of times. And, you know, judging by the previous races this year, everybody's in a big hurry to get as close to the front as they can in the first lap of the race. So watch out for the first hairpin, and after the long back straight, the left-hander at the end of the straight, because if it's close, it's going to be quite tight.
Glenn Seaton, who will start from 13th position, he put his hand up yesterday and said, I mucked up. It was my fault. I was going for third gear going into the first turn, and I ended up putting it in first, and it just locked up and threw me sideways, and that's what ended his qualifying run. So a tough one there as we see the onboard shot for Dick Johnson. He returns after missing the called around.
What's going to be interesting today is to see Cameron McLean, because don't forget he only did 4 laps or 3 laps of practice, Mark, and you know, he went off, but there was another sort of 15 minutes after he went off, and he qualified 7th position.
Yeah, exactly. He only had 4 laps out there, and I'm sure the car would have gone a lot faster. There's our onboard camera looking down at Mark Larkham's feet. We've seen some wonderful messages on the feet there. We saw last time he was waiting for his wife Robin to have a baby, and we congratulate them on the birth of that baby, which was just on, I think, when he got back on Sunday night.
Yeah, well, the message said, Robin, hang in there, I'll be home at 9:30, and she had the baby just after Mark got there, so she did hang on. And it is a very challenging time for the drivers. We cast our minds back as we have a look at the Bridgestone race analysis. As we said, a full grid of 30, 22 laps the race distant. And have a look at the qualifying. Quite amazing. 1st to 20th, 9/10ths of a second. You can't ask for it to be any closer than that.
I tell you what's going to be really interesting. They've put a bigger distance between the cars on the grid here, and some of the guys at the back of the grid are going to be starting around the corner, so they're going to have a hard time. But it's going to be interesting to see how close they get bunched up, but how close they can get to each other at the first corner.
This is a really critical day for Glenn Seaton, though, guys. He's 2nd in the championship points, 170 points to Craig Lowndes, who's not here today. This is the best chance Seaton's going to have to really close up that gap. So even though he's had a bad qualifying performance, he's really got to get some strong points haul today.
It's going to be tough from where he is, back out of the top 10. Just on that point, Barry, where you mentioned about spreading the grid out, they've actually increased it from 12 metres to 18 metres between each row, and they're that far back around the track. They've actually had to employ a second starting marshal. You can see there right at the back of the pack there, Leighton Cranbrook and Mike Emery. There's the green at the back all the way around the last corner. So here we go, get ready to do it. Slippery style in Symmons Plains. We wait for the green, away we go. Murphy gets a great start on the inside, and Radisich too. So let's hope we have an incident-free first run, and Radisich, there's no doubt about that, takes the lead and leads them through the first corner, but he runs wide. Murphy will take the lead in the Wins Commodore.
Someone else has gone with him too up the inside, but let's have a look at this. It's a relatively clean start. That new starting format may have helped them get through that turn 1, turn 2 cleanly, but they're side by side under brakes as they come down the front straight for the first time. Mark Scaife, Greg Murphy up the inside as they go back to first gear for this incredibly tight hairpin and fire up the back straight for the first time.
This will be an interesting challenge because there's not a great deal of love lost between these two guys at the front, Murph and Scaife, but Murphy leads the way. last time here in 1997 for Greg. He did very well. Scapes then back to Radicic. He'll be disappointed about that first corner.
I bet he's kicking himself because he just went in there a bit quick and she sort of ploughed on, understeered straight on. So it's Sod's law, you know, as soon as you get out a bit on the dirt, you say, it's really having bad understeer on the front of that thing. You see how wide he ran there. You know, he's having a lot of trouble getting the thing to stick on the front. Watch the next time, see if it happens.
Neil Crompton moves up right on the back of our pole sitter. Meanwhile, we go on board with Mark Scaife in the Mobile Holden Racing Team Commodore as he tries to zero in on the back of the wins machine of Greg Murphy, thundering down the straight, 230 kilometres an hour on the approach to the hairpin. And Scaife lights on, pulls to the outside, but Murphy beautifully positioned on the inside.
Well, there's nothing you can do, Mark. If someone's there, you know, Murphy. Oh, yeah, you see Murph just run. When you keep a tight line like that, you're naturally going to go out wider and you're naturally going to come out a bit slower. But it was pretty close there for...
The Wins Commodore got off the hairpin fairly quickly, so Murphy's looking good. The 26-year-old Melbourne-based driver, former Mobile Holden Racing Team driver, now team with Stephen Richards in the Wins Commodore team. And Stephen, who's running a little different setup, was well back in 16th position. But Murphy's looking strong. Barguana got away to a good start and has already placed himself ahead of Jason Bright in the Valvoline Cummins Commodore. So Barguana running 5th, Bright 6th, McConville 7th. But it's tight at the top between these two guys, Murphy and Scaife.
Yeah, you look at Radish's car, he's struggling big time to get any grip, either the front or the back by the looks of it. You see how much he's dropped back now. And that's one of the problems with this place. It's very, very tight, and if somebody is sort of holding you up, oh, that's...
Dick Johnson, yeah. He's gone right off in the shrubs somewhere there. I'm not sure where that is on the circuit, but it's seriously bogged.
Bury that baby.
Where's that?
Turn 2.
First turn 2.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of cars going off there in qualifying and practice yesterday, but Dick's fishing for a gear, but there's no way he's going to get out of there.
That's in quite a difficult position too.
Is actually,
quite a dangerous position for the rest of the field.
Well, it's exactly that, because if anybody's going to go off, we saw in qualifying about 5 people went off there yesterday.
And the tragedy of that is that under the 3-race format, he goes right to the back of the grid.
And you'd have to just say that's the same, so, you know, they locked up the fronts, and it really does seem as if the Johnson cars are having terrible understeer problems, because that's with Radicic thing, they lost so much ground in the first couple of laps, and DJ just went straight on there, so she looked like she was locked up. It's Jill.
Dick Johnson's wife, Jill, looking on concerned. Greg Murphy, meanwhile, he's holding Mark Scaife pretty effectively in these opening laps. There's a gap, 2.9 seconds back to third place man, our pole position man, Paul Radicic. Neil Crompton behind him. Then Jason Barguana going great guns in the new Gary Rogers VT Commodore. He's up to 5th. Jason Bright in 6th, and Cameron McConville deputising for Craig Lowndes. He's up in 7th position. And immediately behind him, Cameron McLean in the Greenfield Mowers Ford, who's top privateer and running in the top 10. Interesting, talking with Scaife this morning, he said that he said, well, this is the situation that I'm not real worried about Radicic and Murphy being ahead of me. He said, because they're not in the same race for me in terms of the points for the championship and the safety car coming out. He said, so I'm not going to be going crazy to beat those guys, and I just want to get a good solid finish and get those points. So that's where he is, sitting in second behind Greg Murphy. Safety car on the circuit now. Right, now that's done Paul Radicic a favour. Now all we have to hope is that he can keep the temperature in his tyres, because I reckon he was having a struggle getting the temperature into them. Then in the last lap or so, she suddenly started to pick up and look like it was gripping at the front. Now it's back to square one again, because if you get the temperature out of this old DJ, it's not the happiest of days for him. Well, safety car is out on the circuit, the idea being to slow the field right down while the recovery crews get rid of the car, Dick Johnson's car particularly, which is sitting at a very dangerous point there in the sand trap off turn 2. So we'll return to racing conditions as soon as that shell Ford is pulled out of the dirt. And you can see by that shot there coming out of the hairpin that Jason Bright has turned it back around on Barguana, and he reclaims 5th position. Here's your Shell Helix race score. Murphy, Scaife, Radicic will be bunched up nicely now. Crompton, Bright, Barguana, McConville and McLean. They're your top 8. Engler's doing well. Seaton's still back outside the top 10 with a lot of work to do. After starting on an all-Kiwi front row, he leads this race after having a very frustrating season. Well, the word we hear from the pits is that Paul Radicic is having some tyre temperature problems. I would assume that means he can't get enough heat into his tyres, particularly his fronts, because the car's understeering very badly. That means it's not turning into the corner vigorously, and he's really struggling to get around the turn, so that's costing him time. And you can see the way these two cars, as we saw in the first part of this race, just sprinting away from Radicic.
Yeah, but Radicic started to come on the last lap before they stopped it.
Yeah.
And you see there, he hasn't lost an awful lot of ground, so with any kind of luck, he's managed to keep a bit of temperature in the tyres. But I reckon Radicic is going to not give up the ghost. You see the gap now, there he is there, with Crompton right up his bottle.
One thing we should make mention of too, that it was put across the news services last night that Stephen Richards was in fact charged for that incident with Craig Lowndes at Calder a few weeks ago. He has since been cleared of that charge overnight, so we should make that clear for Stephen and the Wins Racing team as we join Mark Scaife as he continues the chase on Murphy down into the hairpin again, and Murphy continues to drive defensively on this inside line.
Yeah, Murph and Scaife are the only two in the 57 bracket lap, so yeah, it's nearly a second quicker than Radicic there, so doesn't look as if Paul can stay there.
I'll tell you what, it's a great performance by the Wins team to knock this car into shape here, but equally impressive from the Mobil boys. Keep in mind, Mark Scaife blew an engine very early in the first untimed session yesterday, so he spent all that session changing the engine. He was late coming out for session 2. So really they only had a very, very short period of track time to try and get the car sorted for the track. He qualified 3rd, and now he is here challenging for the lead. They're a remarkable squad of people at the Mobil team. They really know how to dial these cars in fast, don't they, Bats?
Yeah, they do. I was just thinking Fred Gibson's not here this weekend, so Fred will have his feet up on the table, a nice hot cup of tea, or watching this.
Well, I'll tell you what,
freezing down here, Fred.
Freddie will have his fingers crossed too, because the last man to win a round of the championship for Gibson Motorsport was Mark Scaife at Eastern Creek in 1995. That is how long the Gibson Motorsport team has been out of the winner's circle. So this is a very, very important day for Freddie Gibson.
Have a look at this bunch here.
Quite unjustly, because it's such a good setup for Gibson.
One slip and you will lose a place. Crompton goes for the inside run on Radicic. Have a look at this. Side by side, the two Ford runners. Crompton will have the outside run through the little kick here, and he'll get the inside run down to the end of this back straight.
Yeah, I was going to say they're pretty brave to stay on the outside through that one.
I'll tell you what, they say the Dick Johnson Racing engines are amongst the most powerful in the field. You saw a good demonstration of it there. Not only getting it to the ground effectively, but boy, can that thing haul a mail in a straight line. Top end speed for Radicic, very impressive. Crompton got a great run out of the hairpin, but he couldn't capitalise on it by the time they got to the end of the straight.
Tremendous battle between Bargwanna, yes, Barry.
Do you remember Bargwanna last year? He nailed two of them at the end of the back straight. It was really a great one. I really hope that Bars gets a good result, because he's suffered badly this year, and he's been going really well here so far.
Further back in the pack, Russell Ingall has got the lights on, trying to get through on Cameron McLean, and McConville is right there with Bright. That's McLean in the Greenfield Mowers car. Then Russell Ingall behind him, Garth Tander, who is quite ill this weekend. He's got a bad case of the flu. So,
well, Crompton trying to break this stranglehold on this bunch here. There's 3 cars. Murphy and Scaife, they're both running in the 57s, then it's 58. Radicic is getting this big queue behind him. You can see Cameron McLean running those big discs on the wheels of his car. I think the idea behind that is it traps a lot of the brake temperature inside the wheel, and that transfers to giving a little bit more heat for the tyres. And seems to be working pretty well for him this weekend. The privateer right up there amongst the top 10.
Well, there was a big concern as soon as the guys knew that it was going to be a wet day, because this is a very abrasive surface, the Symmons Plains track. And they were all concerned about the how long the wet weather tyres would last, because they said that it would shred them very, very quickly.
I think with the ambient temperature being as low as it is, the track temperature can't be anything above 10 degrees. So that doesn't lend itself to the track drying out quickly. If you see there, it's still pretty wet, so I don't think it's going to come into play.
So Murphy and Scaife, 3.4 seconds the gap over Paul Radicic. Neil Crompton in 4th position, Bargwanna in 5th, Bright, McConville, McLean, the man on screen now in the Greenfield car, he's in 8th, Russell Ingall in 9th, Garth Tander rounding out the top 10, and John Bowe, the local hero, he's in 11th.
Seaton in 12th, that's not good.
McLean, like Seaton yesterday, he also had no problem in admitting he made a mistake in qualifying. He said he got that much drive out of the bottom turn onto the main straight. When he pulled 5th gear instead of when he usually left it in 4th and hit it on the rev limiter, he hit 5th and it just took off. And he said he almost forgot to brake and then found himself in all sorts of trouble when he ran off the track, and that was the end of his qualifying session. You're watching Paul Radicic hold off Neil Crompton and Jason Bargwanna. This is 3rd, 4th and 5th.
McLean is driving great now, isn't he? I mean, really, very, very quick.
Makes you wonder what he's going to do next year when he moves up to professional with a AU XR8. No doubt he'll buy one of the ex-Dick Johnson racing cars or one of the top team's cars. And he's proved himself a very aggressive, very controlled racer.
You can see how much water there still is out there, Mark, by the spray coming from Radicic's car.
And they've confirmed too that Wayne Park will drive the car. Wayne Park teaming up with Cameron McLean for the Queensland 500 at Queensland Raceway. Crompton still unable to do anything about Paul Radicic in the Ford Tickford Racing AU XR8. Then it's the Valvoline Cummins Commodore of Jason Bargwanna, who's having his best run of the year.
So Murphy's lead over Scaife out to 1.3 seconds. The track conditions are getting drier out there. Everyone now down into the 57-second bracket. 57.40 for our race leader. And Radicic's just on a 57.6, so he's only 2/10 off our race leader at this stage.
Now don't forget, November 11 to 14, the big one, Mount Panorama Bathurst, is the FAI 1000. We are so much looking forward to that. And as they say, nothing shakes the mountain like V8 Supercars. You can contact Ticketmaster for your tickets and get in early. It's going to be, once again, a magnificent weekend. And you can find out even more about the V8 Supercars on the website www.v8supercar.com.au. That website, incidentally, has hit the top 100 websites. It is a very popular one.
It makes you wonder what's happened to Ingle, doesn't it? Because in the first practice, he was quickest by, what, nearly a second or so.
Half a second on everyone in those first 2 untimed sessions. That was in dry conditions.
Yeah, but he just said yesterday, you know, the guys were saying, oh, yeah, you know, they're really looking forward to a good result. And Russell went out, he said, I don't know. The answer is I haven't got the faintest idea. I was going as fast as I could.
He was suffering what the Wins guys were. When you bolt on a new set of tyres, you're going slower or the same.
But it didn't make any difference what he had on. He just couldn't match the time he did in the morning.
John Bow, another man struggling in the Caterpillar Ford in front of his home crowd. A disappointment for JB. And he said he's, again, just like Russell Ingle, he's saying this car just is not riding the bumps well. On smooth circuits, it's an absolute rocket. Around the bumps around here, you just can't get the car doing what he wants. There's Paul Dumbrell, 16 years of age, the youngest ever V8 supercar driver making his debut at Symmons, but off on the rough stuff.
There was a great picture of him today in the paper in his school uniform. By the car. They're really funny.
Be Clear and Simple camera, riding with John Bow. This is the battle for 11th position with Glenn Seaton. Now, this has been an extraordinarily tough year for Glenn Seaton. He's just crept along there, hasn't he? He's second in the points. You couldn't believe the Seaton to be second, considering how difficult the year has been.
And also, you see, you know, like Glenn did in qualifying, yes, he's made some mistakes this year. It's very uncharacteristic of Glenn.
But he's there. He's always there gathering points. It may not look all that impressive in the Ford Tickford Racing AU, but he is gathering points all the time and is currently 170 points in arrears of Craig Lowndes.
Oh, good run out of that.
See the graph at the bottom of your screen, the yellow line indicates John Bow's track speed. You can see on the right of the screen there as it reaches up over 200 kilometres an hour. Usually reaches about 240, almost, yes, just over 240 kilometres an hour. And that red line along the bottom of the screen indicates when he's on the brakes, and you can see by that bump in the line there, big hard brake at the end of the back straight. He points it back toward the pits once again.
And this here, as Seaton gets a little out of shape coming onto the main straight, very fast section of the circuit. It dips down and rises again before they go into this very tight change of direction here. TV doesn't really do it justice because it looks like quite a slow section through there, but they're in fact going very, very fast.
Well, by the looks of it, if Glenn gets past JB, you call him Houdini at the moment, wouldn't you? Because JB seems to have it absolutely covered.
1.8 seconds the lead. Greg Murphy back to Mark Scaife. This is the battle here for 11th and 12th. The Shat Ford is John Bow and Glenn Seaton in the Ford Tickford Racing AU on the outside. This is similar to what Crompton tried to put on Radicic. Will Seaton be able to pull it off? He stays side by side with Bow. 240 kilometres an hour.
Yes. So it's just a matter of having the bottle to stay on the outside, and plus the track has dried out a little bit now, so you can use the wider line. And, you know, once you'd got as far down as that, there was no way that JB could hold him off.
Tell you what, back at the front, Greg Murphy's doing an outstanding job. He's 1.9 seconds now, the gap over Scape. He's pumped it out another half a second. So the wins Commodore on this bumpy Symmons Plains track is working absolutely fantastic in the wet conditions. 57.71 for Murphy, 57.82 for Scape. 3.8 seconds the lead over Paul Radicic in third position, but Murphy really is controlling this race.
And there is a big team of people in that wins organisation. Gary Dumbrell, the man responsible for bringing wins to the team. Alan Heafy, team manager. Ross Holder and Freddie Gibson. It will breathe a big sigh of relief. They have finally tasted some success. Greg and Stephen had a great run at the Adelaide 500, but nothing like this. Murphy on the way to victory here at Symmons Plains. Now 1.97. Now it's come back to 1.88 seconds, the gap between he and Scape.
Tell you what's really turned it around for these guys. What looks so impressive is the fact that even though he's leading the race, these guys have always had pretty good race speed. It's just that they haven't got the most out of the car in qualifying. And with a pack covered by 0.9 of a second over 20 cars, if you're not at the front in those front 2 or 3 rows, you don't get anywhere. But now they've got a good qualifying setup on the car, you're seeing the pace, the race pace that the Wins team has.
Scafie was going out all the way out on the right-hand side of the show. Oh, it's the back end of Radicic's thing hanging out there. Yeah, Scafie was obviously tyres getting hot now because Scafie was out on the wet trying to cool them down a bit. So just pumping the old...
It's interesting, Baz, because it looks like the track is getting drier.
Yeah, it is.
But the times aren't coming down, so that would indicate the tyres are starting to get a bit spongy.
I was talking with Glenn Seaton, and actually if you can get a shot at the front of Mark Scaife's car, you'll notice the front spoiler is suddenly turning white from red to white. And Seaton was saying this morning that most of these front spoilers, they just get blasted that hard here at this track that by the end of the day, they're basically useless. And Scaife's car is a good illustration of that. You can see it going from red to white, where it's just being basically just blasted with a combination of the water and everything else. It's coming off the circuit.
So further back in the pack, Jason Bright.
That's if Russell still hasn't got past Cameron McLean.
McLean picks his way through the traffic.
Through on the inside of Mike Emery in the Sabrec Commodore.
This is the battle for 8th position. McLean in 8th. Russell Engel and Garth Tander trying to dispose of that position. But McLean doing an outstanding job. Brilliant. The ex-Dick Johnson Racing Ford is beyond the class of the privateer division in 1999. He'll certainly be stepping up to professional next year. Look at this gaggle of cars.
Stephen Richards on John Bowe and Tony Longhurst. So Richards has come from 16th position and now he moves up into 13th.
Oh, look at what's Longhurst. What are you doing? No, I think he's going to have a go up the inside.
So Bowe now is going backwards. He'll be a little frustrated with that. Perkins is right on him now. So we've got several groups that are having some tremendous battles around the Symmons Plains circuit. Richards is on the way forward, and we should point out in defence of Stephen that he is running a very different setup to Greg Murphy. They've been working hard, and well, basically the resources that they have here are only enough so that they can run it on Greg's car and not both cars, but they'll have that rectified in the future.
Good performance from Tony Longhurst here, all over the back of Stephen Richards. This is the battle for 12th position. Tony was confident a good result here in wet or dry conditions. The team's been doing a lot of work on shock absorber development. And the car getting progressively stronger, running an engine built by Bo Seaton in-house. Look at Rodney Forbes alongside John Bowe. Oh, let's go 3 wide with Larry Perkins. John Bowe is floundering out there. He's getting past left, right and centre.
Rodney Forbes then, up the inside of Larry.
Does a double move on the outside of Perkins. He's well positioned on the inside.
Yes.
So Perkins.
No, yeah. Larry was out on the bucky stuff there and just sort of understeered straight off.
Plenty of speed on the old Wayne Gardner racing car with Rodney Forbes behind the wheel.
Yeah, but he's doing a good job. I mean, that was a really good move on JB and also on Larry. So it's not only speed, you know, you have to drive the things.
Well, the leads come down about half a second. Scape really digging deep now. But the time's almost identical. 57.96 for Murphy, a 57.99 for Scape. They're separated by hundredths of a second. But Scape this time has been able to bring it down half a second. 1.3 seconds the gap as he chases after Greg Murphy.
That reminds me too, just seeing Rodney Forbes do that. It was a tremendous privateers race yesterday. And don't forget you can watch that on trackside between Forbes and McLean again, having a great scrap. 3 laps left to run in the opening race of 3 round 9 and some damage. Damage on the front end of Scaife's car.
Oh, he's done it again. He's brought it down to 1.2. Oh, this is real nail-biting stuff. Maximum pressure driving for Greg Murphy and Mark Scaife, former teammates at the Mobile Holden Racing Team. Let's have a look at where they're sitting on the track at the moment. There's your race leader, Murphy. Scape in second position. Paul Radicic still there in third with Crompton behind him. Bargwana in fifth. Jason Bright in sixth. Cameron McConville in seventh. Then there's another gap. Cameron McLean, Russell Ingall and Garth Tander. And Ingall has right alongside.
Oh, I've seen this somewhere before.
They're coming up on Paul Dumbrell, the 16-year-old schoolboy who's having a very big weekend in John Faulkner's VS Commodore.
The same car.
Cameron McConville ran for the last 3 rounds, and he will team up with Darren Hossack for the Enduros, getting some valuable time in the V8 as we watch Russell Ingall try and do something about Cameron McLean with just a little over 2 laps left to run.
This is the battle for 8th position. I think if you would have said to Russell Ingall he'd be battling for 8th, and this weekend he would have laughed at you on Friday. Things have really turned around for him since qualifying. This car is not working the way he wants it to. McDougall heads into pit lane. That's a bad day for Dougal. Some strong performances in 1999, but this battle continues. Cameron McLean defending hard from Russell Ingall. Ingall lights ablaze, ducks out the outside, tries to run down the outside as they come down toward the hairpin once again, but McLean positioned in the right position on the inside. Can Ingall do anything about it coming out of here? Well,
Greg Murphy is well on the way to bringing up a...
Yes, well, if Russell can stay on the outside here, then he's going to be in the prime position for the left-hander at the end.
Ingall's got a great run out of there.
Good, done.
Under brakes, he's on the inside line for turn 6. 1 lap remaining for our race leader, Greg Murphy. The gap now is under 1 second between Mark Scaife and Greg Murphy. 1 lap remaining for the Wins Commodore driver. Can the Murph hang on and bring it home for Gibson Motorsport?
Well, if he does hang on, guys, he will be the only other driver except for Glenn Seaton, other than HRT, in the last 10 races to win a race here at Symmons Plains. This has been a very pleasing track for results for the Mobile Holden Racing team. Seaton won race 1 last year. Other than that, it has been HRT all the way.
That's it.
Gone.
Oh, well, it's
Down the hairpin.
out and whacked the bank, I would say.
Well, he could have got turned around too.
Yeah.
I didn't see the incident, but it's a funny place to come off.
So that will now elevate Neil Crompton into third on the last lap. This is Greg Murphy. The last time he won here at Symmons was race 3 in '97. Murphy does it for the Wins Commodore team. And excellent stuff from Mark Scaife in second. It was almost a full second gap, but well done, Greg Murphy.
That's so good for Murphy. It'll take you 3 weeks to get the smile off his face.
It will
That's
indeed.
really nice for him.
And for Mark Scaife, who pulls alongside, I'm sure he'll give him the thumbs up. But for Scaife, as far as he's concerned, that is valuable championship points. Let's have a look at this Radicic incident as we have a look at the Shell Helix replay. And he's done it all himself.
Yeah, he just locked up the back there and spun around. That was it. Well, there you go. So no damage, but he will be kicking himself. It just looks like a bit too much brake on the rear of it, and lock the back up, and you turn in and you don't realise you've got too much on until the back locks up, by which time it's too late.
A gift there for Crompton and Bargwana. Crompton moving up into third and Bargwana fourth, but there is our race winner, and that is the first victory for the Wins Kmart Commodore team. Here's the Shell Helix race score. Scaife in for second from Crompton. Bargwana, Bright in for fifth. McConville, a good steady drive. Ingall and Garth Tander.